Good afternoon, students.
Good afternoon, sir.
So start the class.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Now you see the video.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ed Waldrop, Master Tech at iCrack.com, the world's largest mobile on-demand smartphone repair service.
Here you see that how to remove or disassemble the LCD with touchpad from the cell phone. As we all know that we are required hot air blower or hot air gun to passes the hot air. Here we are passes the hot air through hot air blower gun.
In this video, we're going to take you through the repair of an
As
iPhone
you
7.
see,
We'll talk through the entire process, but if you're watching this video and find yourself with a broken smartphone, visit iCrack.com and we'll schedule you with a local iTech to fix your device today. Or if you happen to be a tinkerer like myself, you can always purchase a do-it-yourself. You can always purchase a pry tool. So the first thing we're going to want to do is remove, if you happen to be a tinkerer like myself, you can always purchase a do-it-yourself repair kit from our website. So let's get into it. As you can see, I'm using proper anti-static safety with a mat and a wristband grounded to earth. So to open the iPhone 7, we're going to have to apply some heat to the screen.
this is a hot air blower, yellow colored machine. It passes the hot air and it helps to remove the gum which are present between touchpad and front casing. At first we are passing the hot air.
To loosen the gasket that sits between the frame and the glass. We'll also use a couple of tools such as a suction cup, a guitar pick, or a pry tool. So the first thing we're going to want to do is remove the two screws at the bottom left and right of the charge port
We have removed the
using the pentalobe screwdriver. Hair gun or a hair dryer. The idea here is to get the screen hot enough so that get the screen hot enough. If you have the black phone, you want to be careful that your tools don't slip because you could potentially scratch your frame. Now that I've got the two pentalobe screws removed, I'm going to use a heat source such as a hot air gun or a hair dryer. The idea here is to get the screen hot enough so that the adhesive that lays between the frame and the display loosens up and allows you to easily lift the display. So using your heat source, you want to
you see that passes the hot air from the hot air blower. It helps to remove the gum smoothly. After the passage of heat air, you will see that this white color strip sits there for remove the LCD lens.
Constantly move it around and evenly heat this
The heat.
while not getting it too hot and not getting too close, because you could burn the phone. So as I'm moving around, I'm also going to be touching the screen to make sure it's warm enough, but not too hot that I'm going to burn myself. If it is too hot to where I may burn myself, I'm going to let it cool down for a few seconds to where I can touch it.
As
Now that I've provided sufficient heat, I'll go ahead and take my suction cup, place it on the glass just above the home button. Now, if your display is badly fractured, you may have to put a couple of layers of tape on here so that you can get a grip on the suction cup.
help us to remove the
By pulling the ring on the suction cup and
smoothly.
placing my fingers on the outside of the frame, I'm going to slowly start lifting just enough so that I can create a gap in here in which to insert my guitar pick or the nylon pry tool. Now once I get this in here, I can go around and very gently start cutting the adhesive in here. So you see you can use both tools. Now I'm coming up the sides here and breaking that adhesive. Then I'm going to come around the other side and break the adhesive too. But you don't want to go in too far on this side because your cables are located right here. And if you come in with a guitar pick and you shove it in really far, you could end up damaging those cables. So I'm going to continue with my pry tool since it only allows me to go in that far. This whole time I'm keeping a grip on the suction cup to keep it lifted. Now the top end of the phone is actually slid into the frame, so you can't really get underneath there. But
Do you understand how it's works?
No.
Actually, at first we are passing the heat air from hot air blower or hot air gun for remove the gum. When we are passes the heat, the gum will, which is fixed here, it's removed automatically. So after that, we are remove the LCD with touchpad from the front housing. Deassemble from the front casing. After using a mobile opener tool. Actually, this is called mobile opener tool. This is a mobile opener tool, and it's also the mobile opener tool. And when we are just place it on that, the LCD will remove automatically, and using of the mobile opener tool, it remove more easily. I believe when you see the video, in your cell phone, you will know properly how actually it's opened. So start the video. At first you see the video fully. Then if any question arises, just tell me.
Then you could take the phone and slowly work it downward to break the adhesive gasket along the top edge. There we go. So now I've broken that top edge, and that will allow me to open the display sort of like a book. But the key is that you want to make sure that the display sits along the edge of the frame here, because that gives you enough room to keep this open and be able to use your hands to start removing the screws. Now the flex cable and battery retaining plate located here is held in with tri-wing screws. Now what we found is that some open really nice with a 00 and some open really nice with a 000. So you're going to have to try both of them to see which one's going to actually grab the screw. If you use the 000 and you feel like it's jumping around, switch to the 00, otherwise you're going to strip the head. So there's 4 screws in this retaining plate. The 3 on the inside are the equal length, and the one closest to the outside is the long one. It's always best to put a fresh charge of magnetism on your tools so that you can easily grab the screws. I'm going to grab the retaining plate and go ahead and remove it. Using a nylon spudger or an ESD Safe pry tool, we're going to disconnect the battery. Now the safest place to go to the battery is between the shield plate here and the standoff screw. If you come in here, get underneath, you can pop it right up. And fold it out of your way so your battery is disconnected. Next, I'm going to come down at the lower edge, closest to the loudspeaker.
Do you understand how it's open?
Yeah, but the video is not moving. It's scratching. It's just
Sorry?
freezing. The video is just freezing. It's not moving. We are just hearing voices.
So you are just hear the voice, not see the video.
The video is just showing an image. It's not moving.
Okay, just a minute.
So you see you can use both tools. Now I'm coming up the sides here, breaking that adhesive. Then I'm going to come around the other side and break the adhesive too. But you don't want to go in too far on this side because your cables are located right here. Now once I get this in here, I can go around and very gently start cutting the adhesive in here. Since it only allows me to go. So you see you can use both tools. Now I'm coming up the sides here and breaking that adhesive. Then I'm going to come around the other side and break the adhesive too. But you don't want to go in too far on this side because your cables are located right here. And if you come in with a guitar pick and you shove it in really far, you could end up damaging those cables. So I'm going to continue with my pry tool since it only allows me to go in that far. This whole time I'm keeping a grip on the suction cup to keep it lifted. Now the top end of the phone is actually slid into the frame, so you can't really get underneath there. But once the sides are pretty well released, then you can take the phone and slowly work it downward to break the adhesive gasket along the top edge. There we go. So now I've broken that top edge, and that will allow me to open the display sort of like a book. But the key is that you want to make sure that the display sits along the edge of the frame here, because that gives you enough room to keep this open and be able to use your hands to start removing the screws. Now the flex cable and battery retaining plate located here is held in with tri-wing screws. Now what we found is that some open really nice with a 00 and some open really nice with a 000. So you're going to have to try both of them to see which one's going to actually grab the screw. If you use the 000 and you feel like it's jumping around, switch to the 00, otherwise you're going to strip the head. So there's 4 screws in this retaining plate. The 3 on the inside are the equal length, and the one closest to the outside is the long one. It's always best to put a fresh charge of magnetism on your tools so that you can easily grab the screws. I'm going to grab the retaining plate and go ahead and remove it. Using a nylon spudger or an ESD Safe pry tool, we're going to disconnect the battery. Now the safest place to go to the battery is between the shield plate here and the standoff screw. If you come in here, get underneath, you can pop it right up. And fold it out of your way so your battery is disconnected. Next, I'm going to come down at the lower edge, closest to the loudspeaker, and disconnect the LCD and digitizer flex cable, and then the home button and force touch flex cable. Once those are free, I can slide the screen down a little to give me access to the camera flex cable retaining plate. Now this is held in with 2 Phillips screws, so go ahead and remove those. Grab the retaining plate and set it aside. Then I can come in here, and you've got the front-facing camera right here below the rear-facing camera where it connects to the logic board. And then come in here and disconnect it from the logic board. Now the two are separated. While this is open, go ahead and take a plastic pry tool on the inside of the frame here and pick off any remaining adhesive that might be left over. Just be careful that you don't slip and puncture the battery. You're going to go all the way around, make sure all the old adhesive is removed. And then set the frame aside. Now there's quite a few components that have to be transferred from the original display assembly to the new display assembly. Now I'll go ahead and start up here at the ear speaker retaining bracket. It's held in with 3 Phillips screws. I'll go ahead and lift the retaining bracket out. There we go. Now you've got the front-facing camera, which I'll just move away. And then there's 2 Phillips screws holding the ear speaker to the bezel. So I'll go ahead and remove those 2 Phillips screws. Then remove the ear speaker itself. Located at the top, you've got the ambient light sensor and the proximity sensor. This cable comes around and then loops and plugs in. So we're going to have to come up under here and pull this out of the brackets. But one of the things you want to make sure is that the proximity sensor is held in with a little bit of double-sided adhesive. So you want to heat the front side of the screen right here to make it easier. So I'm going to come up under and pop the ambient light sensor out, and then around and get the proximity sensor out. There we go. So I'm going to take this cable and very gently rotate it around so that you can see here. And you've got the microphone and then the ear speaker contacts. Now the microphone is held in with a double-sided adhesive, and then the contacts for the ear speaker also held to the bezel with double-sided adhesive. Now there's 2 ways of actually getting this out. One way would be to remove the screw and bring the whole bracket up, but that takes a risk of ripping the contacts down here next to the bezel, so I wouldn't recommend that. What I would do is take my iFlex and come up underneath the microphone. So I'm going to slip it between the bezel edge here, right along here, and the flex cable at a 90-degree angle. And then just sort of lift down so that it gets underneath the microphone and breaks that adhesive free. Just like that. So now we have the contacts for the ear speaker down here, and the same thing, but I'm going to come down against the top of the LCD. Get up under here. You don't want to be fast or abrasive with this because you could cut the cable, and it's something you don't want to do because that would cost you additional parts. Now sometimes it stays pretty well, like on this one, it doesn't really want to lift up. So I'm very slowly walking it around the edge and working that adhesive so I can get up underneath and then remove the entire cable out as a single piece. Next, we'll remove the 4 screws on the home button plate here at the bottom, which is, again, tri-wings. Go ahead and reach in and remove the retaining plate. Now the home button itself comes along here, around, and then over the top and connects to a cable down on the bottom. So this cable is not adhesive or anything down at the bottom, so it's very easy to damage. So one thing you're going to want to do here is use 2 spudgers, or a spudger and a pry tool. And you're going to come in and hold the cable down at the bottom while coming along the edge and releasing the home button from the flex cable. You'll see here that this cable here is actually in the middle, and you can kind of roll it up to get it out of your way to see what you're working with. Now we have to break the adhesive free on the underside of the home button flex cable over here without damaging this section here or the physical home button. So again, you're going to heat up this area pretty good because there's quite a bit of adhesive and it's pretty strong. Once you've heated that up, you're going to come in and get an iFlex underneath. The iSesmo is a little wide, so it's pretty difficult. And you don't want to use a wide razor blade because if you slip, you could slice right through the cable. So you're going to very gently come up underneath here and get all the way under there. And then come around the edge on the side and do the same thing, but you also have this alignment pin down here, so it kind of makes it difficult, but once you try it once or twice, you'll figure out a good process for doing that. And again, heating is the key. You don't want to grab this cable and just pull it up because you'll most likely sever this. So you've got to be really gentle here. I've got it lifted up enough. I'm going to get my spudger underneath and very gently roll it underneath to lift it up. Then the home button itself will come out through the front and drop down. Now, the thermal plate, one thing to be aware of is there's 6 tri-wings, 3 on each side, and then there's a lot of adhesive on this area of the flex cable. And if you take this and just try to lift it up, you're going to break these tabs down off of the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these 6 tri-wings, which are all equal size. Now this phone's been opened a couple of times, and what you'll find that these screws can be difficult to break free. So what I'll do is I'll take my nylon spudger on the back side and then my screwdriver in the front so that I can get in there enough to break those free. Because if you just try pushing, you'll end up bending the tab.
So, the video is just cracking.
Video is cracking.
Yes, the person is talking, but the video is not moving.
Okay.
Maybe it will be better to watch on our phones.
Okay, just you do one thing. You see this on your phone, and I will just describe you how it works. Actually, I believe you all know how to open or disassemble a cell phone, but you are unable to know that how to remove LCD with touchpad, which is mainly present in smartphone nowadays. It comes in a combine that LCD and touchpad are fixed, and you are unable to remove it. So at first, what we do, I am just telling you in a gist format what you're doing. You just take a cell phone or smartphone where the LCD and touchpad are present in a combined place. At first, you remove all the screw, battery cover. After that, you passes the hot air from hot air blower to the front side of the touchpad. this hot air help you to remove the gum very smoothly, because the touchpad and the front casing are fixed with gum. If you release the gum smoothly, then you actually remove the touchpad properly. Otherwise, you are unable to remove the touchpad with LCD properly. So when you passes the hot air into the cell phone, it helps to remove the gum. When gum is removed, you easily remove the LCD with touchpad. After that, you will remove all the components separately. Then you rectify the problem, replace the spare part, and when the replacing process is complete, you just fix it once again all the spare parts. In that video, in last, you see I will just show you the place.
Set it in place, press it down. Then it's got two sheets. The outer sheet you'll be removing.
Apply.
Now there's two ways we can do this. We can take this, making sure this cutout, and this cutout here comes over the rear camera, and this antenna, line it up so that all the corners sit in, and then flatten it.
Video.
Now, available soon will be this gasket alignment tool.
Yes.
That I could set on here. And I'm only showing this.
It's
Can you
scratching.
do
Video scratching.
Okay. At the
So the video is
Scratching, the video scratching.
At the end moment, see this in your cell phone, you will see that one gum sheet is present to apply on the front casing. When it's present in the front casing, the gum will automatically fix the touchpad, that you can easily fix the touchpad once again. As per my suggestion, you see the video in your cell phone. If any problem arises, then please tell us. You see the video in your cell phone.
Because we have it. This will accurately put the gasket back into the frame, and this will work on a 6S and a 7. Now for this though, you have to reconnect the battery so that it's out of the way for applying this. This little area here again is the rear facing camera. So I'll take this, line it up on these guides, set it in place, press it down, and then lift this back up. And now my gasket is inside. I'm going to go around and give it one final smooth to make sure that the gasket sits on the edges. And I can take and peel this top layer off. Now that leaves me one more layer inside. So the change they made between the 6S and the 7, now I can take this one and pull it off. Now my gasket is completely within the frame. So you'll see on the front-facing camera, there's this hard area right here, a little clear plastic. That's where the natural fold should happen, so that when it's inside the phone, it would rest like this. So you want to make sure that's folded over. Next, I'm going to take the frame, and then I'm going to take the cable, so it's sort of a little leaped forward, like this. So that I can reconnect the front-facing camera cable to the logic board connector. Now, it wants to spring back, so make sure it's in place, and you should feel that nice click of it sitting in. Take the retaining bracket. Now, if you notice on the retaining bracket, you're going to see this edge here with this little piece of black. That is going to go against the edge of the rear-facing camera, like so. Now we'll reinsert and tighten the 2 Phillips screws. Then I could take the display and move it up a little and roll it around. So once again, make sure the display is resting on top of the frame so that you can get reach here and not worry about accidentally ripping the front-facing camera cable. I'm going to take the home button cable and reconnect it to the logic board. And you'll feel it double snap. Take the LCD digitizer cable, reconnect it to the logic board. And you should feel it snap on each end. One thing I want to stress, anytime you connect or disconnect the LCD digitizer flex cable, you must have the battery disconnected. Even though the phone may be off, if the battery's disconnected, there is still voltage within this area. And if your pins aren't lined up, you take the chance of blowing the backlight filters and rendering the phone irreparable. So now that those are nice and connected, I'll go ahead and reconnect the battery to the logic board. Now we'll take the retaining plate, set it in place, and insert and tighten the 4 tri-wing screws.
Hot everyone around. Hot everyone around. I'm a hot air for your head. Hot air blower for everyone around.
Now that the 4 screws are in, I'm going to go ahead and tighten them. And remember, do not over-torque these screws. They sit in close proximity to the logic board, and if you over-tighten them, you will damage the logic board. Now, the next thing I want to do is turn on and test the phone to make sure I have LCD in touch and the front cameras and areas that are all working. Before I insert this, because of the adhesive around the edge, you don't want to insert this, find out something's not working, and then have to pull it apart and ruin your gasket. So I'm going to hold the frame and the screen slightly off, like this. Grab an icon and make sure it moves all the way around. I'm going to use Force Touch by pressing hard on a Force Touch enabled icon, and you should feel the phone vibrate and get the pop-up. I'm going to check my cameras. Okay, the rear is good, and the front is good. I want to test my microphone. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so my ear speaker and loudspeaker works, because you remember the ear speaker is also your second loudspeaker. So I'm going to go ahead and power down the phone and complete the assembly.
Can you see the video in your cell phone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So do you understand how it works?
Yeah. Yes, it somehow, but it could be better if we could like do it ourselves now, because this one we only watching. It could be better if we were like doing it ourselves now.
Actually, this instrument is not present in your institute right now. That's why you are unable to understand it. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sebastian, can you arrange this hot air blower?
Excuse me?
Can you arrange it? The hot air blower?
Yes, I can arrange, because I spoke already to provide the equipment, but still he's not done yet doing the quotation.
Okay, then you talk to Miss Anna and she will talk with Miss Rajeshwari from India, and Miss Rajeshwari will help you how you get it.
Okay.
Matthias and Johannes, I am sending the 2 video links. I think you got it, right?
Yes, sir.
And Matthias, please share it to Johannes so that you both of you are seeing this video properly.
Okay, sir.
And in the next class, if any doubt is in your mind, I will clear it. At first you see the video properly. If possible, download the video from the YouTube. And the next day is any doubt clearance, any doubt in your mind, I will clear it and we will go for our next class, which is SCM, Supply Chain Management.
Now, sir,
Once I repeat that
I only have,
see the video.
I only have one concern, sir.
Yes, please tell.
I only have one concern.
Yes, please tell.
How many days do we have? How many days do we have for practical classes?
How many days?
Do we have for practical classes?
Actually, it's decided by management team. You ask Miss Anna and as well as Miss Rajeshwari.
Yes, sir.
So, we will end our today's class here. You see the video in your cell phone. If possible, download the video so that you can manage the data consumption. And if any doubt, please ask me as well as via workplace or in the next class. I will guide you. And after, in the next day, if any doubt, we clear it, then we will go for our further class, that is SCM or Supply Management Service. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So bye bye students. Bye bye Sebastian.
Bye-bye, sir. Okay, bye-bye, sir.